I've sat down one-on-one with over 200 people to talk about their careers. Real, messy, and sometimes teary conversations. And here's what I've learned. Most people don't need better advice, they need better questions. So in this video, I'm going to share the 9 questions that consistently change the direction of the conversation. Some of them are practical, a few of them are uncomfortable, and at least one of them might make you pause in a way you weren't expecting. Having so many of these conversations has meant I start to see patterns in how people think about their work. And the pattern I see most, people are overloaded. They've got too much information, too many options, too many voices telling them what they should want. They need permission to stop, ask themselves what actually matters, and build a career around that. Over the last couple of years, I've been collecting questions. Real questions that made people stop mid-conversation and actually think. 9 of them kept coming up again and again. So that's what I'm sharing today. Question number 1, and this one's the foundation. What are you running away from? And what are you actually running towards? Now, I learned this question the hard way. There was a point in my career around 4 years ago, and I was deeply, deeply unhappy. Like the kind of unhappy where I distinctly remember calling my friend and colleague before work one morning, crying because I was so on edge about going into the office. I booked in a session with my business coach and I was ready to quit. I actually had my resignation drafted, but she said, "Don't quit yet." She said, "Lauren, you're running away, but I don't know what you're running towards. And if you leave without knowing that, you'll just find a different version of the same job." So I took 4 months. I didn't quit yet, but I asked myself that question over and over. What am I actually running away from? Was it the politics, the feeling that my work didn't matter? Well, it was the micromanagement, to be honest. And then I asked myself, what am I running towards? Autonomy, impact, a different kind of team. And that difference is everything. Yes, running away creates motion. It feels productive and like you're doing something, but it doesn't give you direction. Whereas running towards, that's what gives you energy. That's what sustains you when the new thing gets hard. And of course it will get hard. So this question isn't about quitting, it's about clarity. And that clarity changes everything. Question 2. What does a very bog-standard Tuesday need to look like for this to work? Not the days where there's adrenaline, fun company away days, or promotion announcements. I'm talking about Tuesday, a very ordinary day at work. Because something I see all the time is people designing their careers around the peaks, the title, the big project, the shiny new opportunity. But your life isn't lived in those moments, it's lived in the in-between. And alignment at work rarely comes from the big moments. It builds in the everyday ones when the rhythm of your week fits your nervous system. Most people never ask themselves, if I actually get this job, what does a Tuesday look like? Will I sleep properly? Will I see my child at breakfast? Will I have headspace? Will I finish at a time that respects my life outside of work? Instead, we ask about growth. We ask about salary, we ask about progression, but we don't ask about the texture of the day. And that's where careers either sustain or drain you. So whenever you're considering something new, a role, a project, a direction, bring it back to this. What does Tuesday need to look like? Because your life is mostly Tuesdays, it's not promotions. And then there's this one. This is the mirror. If nothing changed for the next 2 years, how would that feel? Don't overthink it or optimize the answer, just notice your first reaction. If nothing shifted, same role, same salary, same desk, same team, same Tuesday, how does it land in your body? Do you feel relief, comfort, restlessness, maybe a sinking feeling, or do you get a surprising sense of calm? You don't have to do anything dramatic with the answer, but please pay attention to what comes up. Because that feeling is useful, it's giving you honest data. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for your career isn't to make a big move, it's to hold up a mirror to yourself and acknowledge what's already true. Okay, question 3, and this one's the light at the end of the tunnel. What part of your work gives you energy, even on a bad day? Now, don't confuse energy with passion here, because passion is this thing everyone's supposed to feel, and when they don't, they think they're broken. But energy, well, that's reliable and it's data. So I took a job once, 6 figures, big title, everything on paper said it was a win, and I was miserable. I had everything I thought I wanted, and then I realized I was actually asking the wrong question. I kept asking myself, am I passionate about this? And the answer was no, but I never actually asked what part of this gives me energy. And there was a part, albeit a small part, I was doing strategy work. I was figuring out how things connected, what was working, what wasn't. And even on the days where everything else was frustrating and political and soul-crushing, those 2 hours, I had energy. Now, I eventually left that job for a million other reasons, but I did learn something. The part that gave me energy, that was the clue. That was pointing me towards the kind of work I actually needed to be doing, and I do now. So ask yourself, what gives you energy even on a bad day? And then start asking how you can build more of that into your week. Okay, so those 3 are the anchors, but there are 6 more questions that kept coming up, and they're all worth sitting with. Quickly, what are you tolerating that you don't actually need to? This one's brutal, but it's about permission to say no to things. Who are you trying to impress with this version of success? If the answer is myself, great. If the answer is your parents, your ex, that dickhead you feuded with in marketing, well, then we have some work to do. If you stop trying to be good at everything, what would you double down on? Permission again, this time permission to be selective. What would enough look like? Financially, emotionally, practically. Most people have never sat with this one, but it is so powerful to reflect on. And finally, if this chapter was allowed to be transitional, what pressure would disappear? Not everything has to be permanent, not everything has to be the thing. Some chapters are just chapters. All of those are worth sitting with. But if you only work through the first 3, then you'll have direction, reality, and energy. And that's enough. So here's what I want you to do this week. Not all 9, pick one. Just one question, write it down, sit with it, and notice what comes up. Maybe it's a feeling, maybe it's a thought. It's all data. If you picked the direction question, what am I running away from? What am I running towards? Sit with it for a couple of days. You don't need an answer this week. You need clarity, and sometimes that takes time. If you picked the Tuesday question, actually walk through what your typical Tuesday looks like right now. Be specific. When do you start? When do you finish? How do you feel? What's missing? If you pick the energy question, notice what actually gives you energy, not what should give you energy. I hate the word should. What actually does. Even small things count. And if you pick the mirror, you already know what you're doing with that. You're going to sit with how it feels, and then you're going to decide what it means. This isn't about making a big decision immediately. It's about asking better questions so that whenever you do make a decision, it's coming from clarity instead of desperation or comparison to someone else's definition of success. You know what I've noticed after 200 conversations? Nobody regrets asking themselves hard questions. Nobody. They regret avoiding them. They regret staying in situations they were tolerating because they never actually asked what they needed. So this video isn't an answer. It's an invitation to notice, to ask, to be honest with yourself about what's actually working and what isn't. The question you sit with this week, that might be the question that changes everything for you too. Careering is a ride, not a ladder. And right now you're in the driver's seat. You just need to ask yourself where you actually want to go. If you found this valuable, hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to help me be able to continue bringing you videos like this. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep careering.